Imagine standing in just a really dimly lit room.
Okay.
You can hear this heavy, rhythmic crash of the ocean outside, and you can feel the exact biting temperature of the sea air as it, hits your skin.
Oh, wow.
The lighting is low, the shadows are long, and without a single word of dialogue being spoken or, a dramatic declaration of love,
Right.
your heart rate is already accelerating.
It's incredible how that works.
It really is. So today, we are looking at the invisible architecture of tension.
Because it is entirely invisible, right, to the casual reader. But once you see the structural beams holding that tension up,
You can never unsee them.
exactly, never unsee them. We are talking about the manipulation of the physical environment to basically dictate human biology.
Right, which brings us to today's deep dive.
Oh.
Welcome in, everyone. You read a lot of content, and usually, when a scene grips you, you credit the dialogue or the action.
Yeah, the obvious stuff.
Exactly. But taking a magnifying glass to how an author uses simple, inanimate elements, like a breeze or a shift in temperature, even a piece of glass, to manipulate your nervous system, that is a fascinating exercise.
It really is.
So our mission today is to conduct a complete, microscopic literary and sensory breakdown of a really evocative short narrative excerpt. It's titled Coastal Whispers.
From the collection, The Rhythm of the Tide, right?
Yes, Story 3 from The Rhythm of the Tide. And we are going to explore how the author uses environmental mirroring, sensory contrasts, and physiological triggers to transform a scene of human intimacy into this elemental, almost cinematic experience.
And we really have to start by acknowledging how the text immediately bypasses the reader's prefrontal cortex.
The logical part of the brain.
Right, the logical thinking part. It bypasses that entirely and targets the autonomic nervous system.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, the author doesn't build tension by having characters argue or confess their deepest secrets. They build tension by altering the room's temperature.
And the ambient noise.
Exactly. The noise, the lighting. I mean, it is just an absolute masterclass in sensory architecture.
So let's step into that architecture. The text drops us immediately into a highly specific atmosphere. There is no sprawling backstory here.
Not at all.
The very first sentence reads, I'll just quote it, "The tide was coming in, the heavy rhythmic crash of the Atlantic waves echoing through the open windows of the beachfront cottage."
It's so visceral.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the author could have just said, they were near the beach.
Right. Very simple.
But instead, the ocean is practically a third character in the room.
Yeah.
So why choose the specific words heavy and rhythmic?
Well, it comes down to the phonetic and honestly the physiological weight of those words.
The weight.
Yeah, think about it. Heavy implies mass. It implies something that cannot be easily moved or stopped.
Right.
And rhythmic establishes a metronome.
Oh, I see.
When you hear a heavy, predictable rhythm, like a heartbeat, or in this case, the crashing of the Atlantic, your own internal rhythms subconsciously begin to align with it.
Wait, really? Like your actual body rhythms?
Yes. Your heart rate, your breathing. This is a real phenomenon known as neural entrainment.
Neural entrainment. Wow.
Yeah. The author is setting a literal tempo for the reader's body before we even see a human being on the page.
That is incredibly subtle. I mean, it's not just a splashing brook outside. It's the massive, ancient power of the Atlantic Ocean.
Exactly.
And the sound of it is physically entering the space because the windows are open. So the boundary between the wild outside world and the domestic interior is just completely porous.
Precisely. And that porous boundary is reinforced immediately by the tactile environment.
The breeze.
Yes, the text continues, saying, "A cool, salt-kissed breeze billowed the lightweight white curtains, bringing the freshness of the ocean into the dimly lit bedroom."
We're introduced to a profoundly multisensory baseline right there.
We really are.
Let's talk about that baseline for a second, because the author is playing a highly specific game with our senses here.
You absolutely are. We have the auditory, which is the heavy crash. We have the tactile and olfactory, the cool, salt-kissed breeze.
You can almost feel it.
Right. You can almost feel that microscopic layer of salt forming on your own skin, just reading the phrase.
Definitely.
And then we have the visual. Lightweight white curtains billowing in a dimly lit bedroom.
And that lighting choice is the linchpin of this entire opening setup.
How so?
Think about the neurobiology of sensory compensation.
Sure.
When you are in a brightly lit room, your visual cortex basically dominates your brain's processing power.
Because we rely on sight so much.
Right. Vision is our primary tool for assessing safety and threat. But what happens when you lower the lights?
You can't see as well.
Exactly. When visual acuity is reduced, human biology dictates that our other senses must heighten to compensate.
Oh, wow. So by setting the scene in a quote-unquote dimly lit room, the author is deliberately handicapping our reliance on sight.
Exactly. By plunging the room into dim lighting, the author is forcefully reallocating the reader's imaginary processing power.
That's brilliant.
It is. Suddenly, because we can't quote-unquote see clearly, we are paying an extraordinary amount of attention to the auditory crash of the waves.
And the tactile chill of that breeze.
Right. It forces a state of sensory hyper-awareness.
Which perfectly primes the canvas for the introduction of our characters, because now we're hyper-aware.
Exactly. We're ready for them.
So we see Leo first. He's sitting on the edge of the bed. His dark hair is damp from a late evening swim, and he's wearing only a pair of soft cotton shorts.
He has literally just emerged from that heavy, rhythmic ocean.
Yeah, he is physically carrying the environment on his skin.
He really is.
Yeah.
The dampness in his hair is just a continuation of the salt-kissed breeze. He isn't just in the environment, he's an extension of it.
And then there is Maya. She's standing a few feet away, brushing her hair.
Right.
And she's wearing a simple silk slip dress that the author describes as shimmering like mother of pearl under the low light of a single bedside lamp.
Mother of pearl.
Yeah. It's an incredibly evocative detail, right?
Oh, absolutely. It bridges the gap between the wild ocean outside and the domestic space inside.
Because it's from a shell.
Exactly. Mother of pearl is an organic composite material created by mollusks. It's born of the sea. It's resilient, but it is also highly iridescent.
It catches the light.
Right. It catches whatever faint light exists and reflects it back. It ties Maya to the ocean theme organically.
Yeah, she isn't wearing something overtly nautical like a sailor shirt or something.
No, exactly. Her garment simply mimics the inside of a seashell. It's shifting and fluid.
But here's where the staging gets complicated and where I kind of have to question the author's choices.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, Maya is brushing her hair in front of a weathered wooden mirror, and Leo is watching her entirely through that reflection.
Right.
He's tracking the movement of her arms, the curve of her back, but entirely through the glass.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because looking at someone exclusively through a weathered mirror instead of just making direct eye contact, isn't that inherently a bit predatory?
It does feel a little
Voyeuristic. Almost like he's trapping her in a frame rather than engaging with her as an equal in the room. How does the author keep Leo from just coming off as creepy here?
That is a highly observant critique, actually, and it touches on the razor's edge of psychological tension.
Because it's a fine line.
It absolutely borders on voyeurism. If the room were brightly lit, or if Maya were unaware of his gaze, it would cross the line into predatory territory.
Right. It would just be weird.
But indirect observation serves a very specific psychological function here.
Which is?
Direct eye contact demands an immediate reaction. It forces a conversation, an acknowledgement, or a breaking of the gaze. Direct eye contact resolves tension.
Right, it triggers the social obligation to interact.
Precisely. But a mirror provides a layer of psychological safety.
Oh, I see.
It allows the observer to watch with unfiltered intensity, and it allows the person being watched to know they are the object of desire without having to immediately confront it.
They are sharing the intimacy of the gaze without the pressure of direct engagement.
Exactly. It keeps the tension tightly coiled.
It's electric, but contained.
Yes.
And I imagine the specific choice of a weathered wooden mirror plays into this as well, because we are looking at extreme material contrasts here.
We really are.
The rough, dead, battered wood of the mirror framing the smooth, fluid, shimmering mother-of-pearl silk.
What's fascinating here is how the author is using entirely visual descriptions to actively prime the reader's tactile imagination.
Because they haven't touched yet.
Exactly. The characters haven't touched each other yet. They are separated by the physical distance of the room.
Yeah.
Yet the reader is already mentally feeling the rough, splintered wood, the cool, frictionless silk, and the soft, damp cotton.
It's like phantom touch.
Yes. The author is waking up your somatosensory cortex, the part of the brain that processes touch, using nothing but visual cues.
It creates a profound sense of isolation, honestly. The dim light, the ancient relentless sound of the Atlantic, the coiled tension of the reflection.
Time has essentially stopped in this room.
But physics and, well, the mechanics of storytelling dictate that if you stretch a rubber band that tight, if you rely entirely on sight and separation for that long,
you eventually hit a breaking point.
you do.
Visual tension is inherently unstable. It is a state of anticipation, not a state of resolution.
Right.
The separation across the room creates a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. The limits of sight have been reached. The narrative practically demands a physical grounding.
Which brings us to the exact moment that vacuum collapses.
Yes.
Maya sets the brush down, and I love this. The sound of that brush hitting the vanity breaks the spell of the reflection.
It snaps the tension.
She turns and walks toward him. But the choreography of her approach is fascinating. She doesn't just walk over and sit next to him on the bed.
No, she doesn't.
The text specifically notes, instead of sitting next to him, she stepped between his knees, looking down at him.
Let's look closely at the proxemics of that movement.
Proxemics?
Yeah, it's the study of how humans use space to communicate. The physical blocking of a scene is never accidental.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sitting next to someone is companionable, it's collaborative, you are side by side, sharing the same forward-facing view of the world.
Right, it's safe. It's what you do on a park bench with a friend.
Exactly. But stepping between someone's knees while they are seated on the edge of a bed, that fundamentally rewires the spatial dynamic.
It's aggressive.
It is inherently confrontational, but in an intimately enveloping way. She shuts out the rest of the room.
Yeah.
From a power perspective, she is standing. She is physically elevated, looking down at him. She has breached his personal space and initiated the proximity. It's a position of clear dominance.
But she's also exposing her absolute center to him.
Yes, she is.
By stepping between his knees, she's placing herself in a highly vulnerable physical position. So she is commanding the space and completely surrendering to it simultaneously.
And that paradox is what makes the movement so compelling.
Yeah.
And Leo's reaction perfectly mirrors that paradox. The text says, Leo immediately placed his hands on her waist, his thumbs smoothing over the silk of her dress.
Oh, wow.
The visual tension from the mirror is instantly converted into a tactile reality. He is finally touching the silk we've been imagining for the last 5 minutes.
And then he utters the very first line of dialogue in the entire story.
After all that buildup,
Just 2 words. Come here.
"Come here," he says softly, pulling her closer until her thighs pressed against his chest.
It's such a soft command, but it completely inverts the power dynamic we were just talking about.
It really does.
Maya walked over, she elevated herself, she breached his space. But Leo is the one who ultimately controls the final shift in gravity.
Right.
He closes the final inch of distance by pulling her in.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the elemental forces the author has been weaving into the background, this moment is entirely about gravity and mass.
Like the ocean.
Exactly. Maya initiates the pull, drawn across the room, but Leo is the heavier mass. He dictates the final trajectory.
Wow.
They are caught in a gravitational dance that exactly mimics the tide they are listening to. The moon exerts a pull, the ocean surges to meet it.
That is amazing.
The macro environment of the crashing Atlantic is directly dictating the micro-human interaction occurring on the edge of that bed.
The environment isn't just mirroring them, it's practically providing the instruction manual for their movements.
It really is.
And once that physical connection is locked in, the author immediately shifts our sensory focus from spatial gravity to temperature.
Yes, the temperature shift is huge here.
Maya's fingers trace the sharp line of his jaw before sliding down to his collarbone. And here's the crucial sentence. She could feel the cool dampness of his skin and the underlying radiating heat of his body.
This is a brilliant deployment of thermal shock.
Thermal shock.
Think about the setup of the scene. Leo was swimming in the ocean at night.
Right.
The ambient air in the room is cooled by a salt-kissed breeze, so on the surface, his epidermis is cold.
Because of the evaporation in the breeze.
Exactly. But underneath that chilled, thin exterior layer, his cardiovascular system is pumping. He is a living mammal generating intense internal heat.
It's a localized physiological overload. By sandwiching that burning internal human heat beneath a layer of ambient cold, the author triggers a literal physical reaction in the reader's imagination.
Because we know what both of those feel like.
Right. Cold makes us contract and shiver. Heat makes us expand and melt. Forcing the reader to imagine experiencing both simultaneously is deeply disorienting.
It creates a friction between the external environment and the internal human passion.
Yeah.
The ocean tried to cool him down, but his proximity to Maya is literally burning that cold away from the inside out.
And her exploration of this thermal contrast is incredibly methodical. She doesn't just crash into him.
No, it's very deliberate.
The text maps out her kiss with deep anatomical precision. First, the forehead, then the eyelids. And finally, the mouth.
Yes.
I have to pause here because the specific geography of this kiss caught my attention.
Oh, the eyelids.
Yeah, kissing the forehead makes sense, it's affectionate. The mouth makes sense, it's passionate. But the eyelids, that is a hyper-specific, almost strange choice. Why focus on the eyelids?
Because of what the eyelids represent, both anatomically and metaphorically.
Okay, anatomically first.
Anatomically, the skin of the eyelid is the thinnest on the human body. It's less than 1 millimeter thick.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and it is flush with nerve endings and lies directly over the globe of the eye, making it a site of extreme physical vulnerability.
That makes a lot of sense.
You only allow someone near your eyes if you trust them implicitly.
So it's the ultimate gesture of trust.
Yes, but more importantly, and this is the metaphorical part, think about what we discussed earlier regarding the visual cortex. How did this entire encounter start?
With Leo watching her through the mirror, it started entirely with sight.
Exactly. By kissing his eyelids, Maya is symbolically forcing his eyes closed.
Oh.
She is shutting down the visual cortex. She is terminating the purely observational, voyeuristic phase of their encounter and forcefully transitioning them into a purely tactile, internal experience.
That is staggering.
Sight is no longer necessary. In fact, sight would now only be a distraction from the intense somatosensory input they are experiencing.
She is literally shutting down his reliance on vision to heighten his sense of touch.
Exactly.
And the pacing of that mapping forehead, eyelids, mouth, it acts as an escalator of intimacy.
It does.
We are anchored in the exact physical space, feeling the slow, deliberate progression of trust converting into passion.
And the pacing accelerates the moment that progression reaches the mouth.
Right.
The text notes that the kiss was soft at first, a gentle exploration that quickly deepened as Leo's grip on her waist tightened, pulling her down onto his lap. The gravitational pull completes its work.
The gentle exploration tips over the edge into something heavier.
Yes.
And as the physical reality of their proximity intensifies, the remaining barriers between them have to be dismantled. The visual tension broke, the spatial distance broke, and now the material barriers must break.
Which is where the narrative shifts from being a masterclass in sensory description to operating on a level of profound environmental metaphor.
Yeah, this is where it gets big.
The boundary between human biology and the natural world completely dissolves here.
So let's track the mechanics of this. The mother-of-pearl silk dress, the garment we spent so much time admiring, is a visual bridge between the room and the ocean.
Right, the silk slip.
It is removed.
Yeah.
With a practiced, gentle movement, Leo slid the straps down her arms, letting the fabric pool around her hips before she stepped out of it entirely.
Pay attention to the verb pool there.
Cool.
Silk is notoriously fluid. It mimics the physical properties of water. As the dress falls, it doesn't just drop at pools, like water retreating from the shoreline.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's the shedding of the final synthetic layer, leaving nothing but the organic reality of their skin.
And once that barrier is gone, Leo lifts her onto the high mattress, pressing her back into the crisp, cool cotton sheets.
The temperature again.
Yes. And here, the text explicitly circles back to the thermal shock we discussed earlier, calling it an intoxicating contrast. The text reads, "The contrast was intoxicating. The cool air from the ocean, the cool sheets beneath her, and the burning, intense heat of Leo's body as he settled between her thighs."
We have the cold environment pressing in from the top, the breeze, and from the bottom, the sheets.
A sandwich of cold.
Exactly. And right in the center, we have localized, intense, radiating human heat.
Yeah.
Experiencing extreme temperature differentials confuses the sensory receptors in the skin. It sends a flood of complex, overlapping signals to the brain.
Like a sensory overload.
That neurological traffic jam is exactly what the author means by intoxicating.
He pins her hands above her head, interlocking his fingers with hers, pressing his entire weight down into her. It's a moment of absolute physical grounding.
There is zero negative space left between them.
None. But just when you think the focus is going to remain hyperfixated on this micro-interaction between two people on a bed, the author zooms all the way out.
This is the pivotal metaphorical sequence of the entire narrative.
The text says, their intimacy was synchronized with the ocean outside. With every crash of a wave against the shore, their movements grew more urgent. A powerful, undulating rhythm that drove out every other thought.
It's so powerful.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because this is where the writing elevates from a scene of human connection into a literal force of nature.
It really does.
If this were a piece of music, the ocean started as a quiet background acoustic track, setting the mood. But here, That acoustic track surges forward, overtakes the melody, and becomes the lead instrument driving the heavy beat of the scene.
The musical crescendo is the perfect way to understand it. The ocean is no longer outside the window. The ocean is orchestrating their bodies. Look at the specific lexical choices the author deploys here.
Like what?
Storm of passion, urgent, undulating rhythm.
Oh, wow.
These are words exclusively reserved for describing weather patterns, tides, and unstoppable natural forces.
Not usually human movement.
Right. The author is taking the monumental, destructive, creative power of the Atlantic Ocean and transplanting it directly into the human nervous system.
They aren't just reacting to the environment anymore. They have become the environment.
Exactly. When you tell a reader that human action is synchronized with a crashing wave, you borrow the ocean's kinetic energy for your characters.
Because we all know what a wave feels like.
A reader instinctively understands the bone-rattling force of a wave hitting a shoreline. By linking the characters to that rhythm, the author transfers all of that raw elemental mass directly into the intimacy of the scene.
Creating a seamless, emotional, and physical peak.
Exactly.
The text finishes that energetic peak with this line. The room was filled with the sound of the surf, their ragged breathing, and the intense electric friction of their bodies meeting over and over again.
Incredible writing.
You can almost hear the auditory masking taking place. The roar of the ocean is rising up, blending with and eventually masking the sound of their ragged breathing.
Yep.
And the electric friction calls back to that burning internal heat. It's a total, overwhelming sensory saturation.
It is the absolute apex of the narrative tension. The coil that was wound so tightly in front of the weathered mirror has violently snapped, releasing a storm of kinetic energy.
Yeah.
But as basic physics dictates, a system cannot maintain maximum entropy indefinitely.
A storm cannot rage forever.
Exactly.
A wave builds, it crests, it crashes with massive force, and then, well, the water has to pull back. The energy must disperse. An energetic peak must be followed by a recession.
It's inevitable.
Which brings us to the profound, grounded quiet of the aftermath.
The author handles this transition beautifully. The text says, "When the storm of passion finally subsided, the room returned to its quiet, rhythmic lull."
The energy dissipates, and the environment, which had been whipping them into a frenzy, immediately steps back in to soothe them. The ocean breeze continued to cool their heated skin, so we return to that temperature contrast. But instead of creating a disorienting, intoxicating friction, the cool breeze provides comforting, necessary relief to their overheated bodies.
Let's examine the structural symmetry at play here.
Okay.
The narrative arc perfectly maps onto the physical anatomy of a single wave.
Oh, I see what you mean.
The story began with the tide coming in, the slow buildup of energy, the cool breeze, the visual anticipation. It crested and crashed during their physical synchronization with the surf.
And now it ends with the tide retreating.
Exactly. The tide retreating, the energy bleeding out into the sand, and that same cool breeze calming the residual heat. The emotional arc and the environmental arc are mathematically identical.
It's incredibly precise architecture.
It is.
Let's look at their physical positioning in this aftermath. The frantic urgency is gone. They are entirely at rest. Maya is curled into Leo's side, her face buried in the crook of his neck. She is breathing in the scent of salt water and his skin. Leo has his arms wrapped tightly around her, his chin resting on top of her head.
They are completely folded into one another. The vast spatial distance from the beginning of the story has been permanently erased.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I want to talk about the final, massive sensory shift the author executes.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think back to the opening. The scene was aggressively visual. The low light, the shimmering mother of pearl, the billowing curtains, the intense focus on Leo tracking Maya's reflection in the wood-framed glass.
It was all about the gaze.
Exactly. It was all about what could be seen. But how does it end? The text explicitly states, they lay in the dark, listening to the eternal retreat and return of the tide.
Right.
Why does the author strip away the visual element entirely at the resolution?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of human evolutionary psychology and how we process safety, it makes perfect logical sense.
How so?
In the beginning, vision was an absolute necessity. Vision is the tool we use to assess our environment, to gauge distance, to anticipate an approach.
Right.
But once that distance is closed, once the connection is secured and the energetic peak has passed, vision becomes neurologically redundant.
You don't need to see someone when you're physically wrapped around them.
Exactly. In fact, continuing to process visual stimuli can prevent the brain from fully relaxing.
That makes sense.
By plunging the room into darkness, the author forces both the characters and the reader to rely on the most primal, lingering senses of human connection: scent and sound.
Scent and sound. Maya breathing in the scent of salt water in his skin.
Yes, scent is directly routed to the limbic system in the brain, the area responsible for emotion and deep memory formation.
It skips the logic.
It bypasses the logical processing centers entirely, and hearing the rhythmic, predictable, low-frequency sound of the retreating tide is deeply grounding.
It's soothing.
The visual excitement spikes their sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, or in this case, intense arousal response. But the dark, the familiar scent of skin, the quiet, repetitive sounds.
What do those do?
Those are precise triggers for the parasympathetic nervous system.
The rest and digest system.
Exactly.
It literally lowers the heart rate.
It biologically forces the reader and the characters down from that electric, chaotic high into a state of absolute grounded safety.
And the excerpt concludes with them drifting off to sleep in a state of perfect, exhausted peace.
It is a profoundly satisfying resolution to the tension that was built.
It really is. The heat has been cooled, the energy spent, and they are safe in the dark.
It demonstrates that elite-level writing isn't just a transcription of events.
No.
It is the deliberate weaponization of the physical world. The temperature of the air, the drape of a fabric, the sound of displaced water. All of it is used to bypass the reader's logical brain and tap directly into their autonomic nervous system.
It is a masterclass in manipulation, honestly.
It really is.
So, as a listener, what do you take away from this microscopic breakdown?
Yeah.
Coastal Whispers is infinitely more than a romance. It is an intricate, hostile takeover of your senses.
I love that phrasing.
The author forces you to feel the thermal shock of cool ocean air against burning skin. They make you experience the frictionless slide of silk against the rough endurance of weathered wood.
Yeah.
They drag you through the psychological tension of indirect observation in a mirror, all the way to the absolute zero distance of physical grounding.
It's quite a journey.
By mirroring the macro environment of a storm with the micro environment of human intimacy, the author turns a simple physical act into an elemental inevitability.
And the true application of this analysis is to change how you perceive the world around you.
Yes, exactly.
When you consume media, stop looking only at the faces of the actors or the dialogue on the page. Look at the shadows. Look at the architecture of the room.
And apply it to real life, too.
Absolutely. Apply this awareness to your lived experience. The next time you are sharing space with someone you care about, notice the ambient temperature. Notice the lighting.
Because it's affecting you.
Right. Recognize that your environment is constantly, subtly manipulating your physiological state, and by extension, your emotional connection to the people in that room.
You are never just having a conversation. You are always existing within a sensory ecosystem.
That's a great way to put it.
But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to push back on that ending just a little bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
The author specifically notes that as they drift to sleep, they are listening to the eternal retreat and return of the tide.
Right.
The text calls it a state of perfect, exhausted peace. But we just spent 20 minutes comparing their passion to a storm, to a crashing, violent wave.
That is the metaphor the author constructed, yes.
But the tide always returns. It is relentless. If the tide is a direct metaphor for their passion, does this ending actually suggest a healthy resolution?
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Or does it imply that Maya and Leo are trapped in a permanent, unbreakable loop? A massive surge of urgent, destructive energy, followed by a brief trough of exhausted peace, only to be battered by the next wave.
Wow.
Are they finding tranquility, or are they just enduring the cyclical, erosive nature of the tide?
What a fascinating reinterpretation. It challenges the assumption that peace equates to permanence.
Right, because the ocean is never permanently peaceful.
If their connection is truly synced with the Atlantic Ocean, then that peace is merely the brief stillness at low tide. It is destined to rise, swell, and crash all over again, eroding the shoreline a little more each time.
Think about that the next time you stand on a shoreline and listen to the heavy crash of the surf. Or the next time you step into a dimly lit room and feel the sudden chill of a salt-kissed breeze. The real story isn't what the characters are saying. The real story is what the environment is making you feel. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.